right, guys, I'm so excited to have a very special guest here with us today. Oh my gosh, my friend Mia Moran is here today. She's been on our show before, and this is so exciting because Mia and I have met in person, which is awesome. Always love having guests on that we've met in person, and we've met online, then we met in person. Now we're back online again. We've collaborated before. We've worked with each other before. I can't wait to dive in. I really want to take Mia's planning program. I know I've heard so many great things from so many people about it. So I'm lining it up, and I'm hoping the stars are aligned that I can dive into your program this year too. And I just heard so many amazing things about it. So Mia has got an amazing podcast called Plan Simple. And this week, we are actually promoting a really cool new project that Mia has got coming out with. Like over 50 entrepreneurs, I think, are involved in it. It's pretty crazy. It's called Back to Business. So we're going to talk about that today too. So lots of fun things lined up for you today. Mia, before we get going, tell us a little bit about your podcast and how you guys started podcasting.
Okay, I'm going to do that right now, but will you remind me, because I'm not going to be able to concentrate, like, how did we meet? Do you remember?
How did we meet? I don't even know. I think we met. I remember you being in our Podcasting for Profit program like a long time ago.
That's how we met. We met through Dan, and he's actually quite right now. That's how we met.
That's right. Okay.
We're like I quickly fell in love with you, and then it's like I feel like okay, got it. I just have to it's like one of those loops that I couldn't close.
Yeah. So because it went so far back so many years ago. And there's been so many different things since then. So, thank you, Dan Morris. Thank you, Dan Morris and his podcasters kit for introducing two amazing people.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so funny.
Awesome.
All right. So the question was about how I got into podcasting.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I would not have ever thought that I would be into podcasting or interviewing people for that matter. Like, I have really always identified as introvert.
Mm-hmm.
And so so it's surprising to me that you know what? We're about to hit 500 episodes, which is unbelievable.
Wow.
I think with the relaunch at like 300, but we're about to hit 500 episodes. And it started really because I'm a designer by trade, and I had a graphic design company for 11 years or something. And then I had this health crisis and health transformation. And that's what inevitably led me to sort of coaching and, this whole online world. And in there, when I had sort of this health crisis, and this was just to give you some timing, at this time, because the internet time moves so fast, but at this time, there was no Instagram. WordPress was super clunky, and not everybody had a blog. So it's a lot of these things that we know now didn't exist at this time. And
now we're dating ourselves here.
I know, it's really bad. But the point of it is that the internet was really ugly. Things were really ugly, and I wanted to promote health. Mm-hmm. And there was no nice things about health. So the seed was really planted for me in becoming an interviewer, because I created a magazine. So I would interview all these men who were into health, and then I would basically Martha Stewartize their, hippie healthy content and put it in this magazine. But it just planted the seed of asking people questions and getting answers and me being able to make something out of other people's answers, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So when podcasting became a thing, mm-hmm. I first started listening to podcasts and I heard about it. It was very quickly, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to learn how to do that. I would love to do that. That seems like the next level of this. So that's kind of how I got into it. And I just really I had so many questions of so many people, and so many interesting people would say yes to being on a podcast.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that modality too. And just talking to people, asking questions. And it's funny, I was remembering too that I actually got to interview you for a feature in Podcast Magazine under the Kids and Family section, right? So that was really cool. I would remember all that. And your podcast has been so popular. It's been really you've been really consistent with it, and you've grown a really great audience from your show. So now tell us a little bit about how you've taken your podcast, or how you've incorporated your podcast into your business, because you've done some really cool things with your business as well that I'd love for our listeners to hear.
Okay, so I'm trying to think if I have a smart answer to how I've incorporated my podcast into my business. So I feel like I feel like I really definitely started my podcast from this place of like, I wanted to do it. It was almost like, I mean, it's related to my business, obviously, but I did it less as a business move and more of like, I could imagine that this would make me happy kind of move. So I think that's really important because there was a moment like 100 or so episodes in where I was like, wait, what am I doing? You know, because it's like it's a lot of work to put out a podcast. And at that point, like, you know, putting money into it. And I wasn't sure like what was happening, like what was coming in. And so, you know, at the same time, I was developing what we were doing and I started to see how I could look at it differently. And it could really be a marketing platform of, you know, connecting me to the people who I was interviewing's audiences. So then there was sort of like a whole section in there where that was sort of my philosophy and what I was doing. And then I was like, oh, people do solo shows? Because it took me, like, I didn't do solo shows for a long time. And I think you were actually one of the people who were like, teach your content. And so then there became a moment when I was like, oh, like I can do both. And so we sort of amped up what we were doing. So I used it to meet great people, to create great partnerships, you know, to share what we're doing. And along the way, and actually, I think this is how I originally started it now that I think about it. So I became obsessed with the idea of summits. I really liked it. And I think like the magazine I had started was supposed to work like a summit, except I didn't know enough about online business to realize that this is how it was working. Because I was like interviewing all these people. And if I was smart, I would have been like asking them to share and collecting those leads. But I wasn't smart enough at the moment. So it was a little bit of an expensive hobby. But the first time that I did a like sort of a summit, which is basically like a series of podcasts all at once on a topic, right? Mm-hmm. That's how I launched the podcast. Like that's how I got enough content to have the courage that I'd have enough episodes. And so
that's how I launched my first podcast too, with the summit, the RV Family Summit. Totally not related to what I do now.
Oh my God, so good. Yeah, and somehow I've also had the same podcast the whole time, which you might tell me is the wrong move, but I sort of kept the same podcast and we just sort of like pivot little by little. I mean, not that much has changed. At the time I started, my business was Plan Simple. It was more food based, so it was called Plan Simple Meals, and then we moved into being Plan Simple. But yeah, it's just been this like amazing ride, and it does serve more as like a connection and marketing. Like I haven't necessarily monetized like the podcast like as itself.
Yeah, but I've seen like some of your guests from your show have become clients, or guests on the show have been like contributors in the program, and like 'cause I love seeing like that correlation between like how like the podcast and the business don't necessarily like they're not intertwined totally, but they really like the podcast is like you're kind of using it in like my very favorite way of like thinking about a podcast as like the best like networking tool in the world. It is like the connector of all things. So it's a really
and I actually find it's really hard to have conversations with like humans out in the world sometimes, because I'm like on a podcast, it's like you just go right in there, like
you're focused.
Anything, you're focused, you're like honest, like it's not about the weather. And like, I find it actually really challenging to be like in real life. My daughter plays volleyball and I'm always, you know, talking to all these people and I'm like, gosh, I just wish I could pretend like this was a podcast interview. So much more interesting. So I love it. Just like, I do feel like it creates deeper connections so much faster than like any other way that I have found.
Right. Like you mentioned, if you're doing those like coffee chats again, like just you meet someone at a networking event, you're like, hey, let's have a chat. And I'm like, no, none of that anymore. We're going on to a podcast interview because I can learn so much more about you than having 3 more of these coffee chats. So exactly. so much more valuable. So that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your business. So you started off in like meals, like healthy meals for families. You started really out in the health space, and you kind of expanded into planning over your whole life with a couple of different pillars. So what was that progression like, and now how do you serve for clients in your community?
Yeah. Well, the food, like literally now looking back, was genuinely like an expensive hobby. It was just, I had this crisis, I solved it, and I wanted everyone in the whole wide world to know about it, but I hadn't really thought about it as logistically as I probably should have. That looks really good. Um, and so what happened was, like, long story short, a whole bunch of different things. There was a magazine, there was a course, there was just trying to monetize a blog at some moment, but it all inevitably led me to write a book called Plan Simple Meals, which also was its own thing. The book came about, it was like a seed planted in my head. I was a designer. I designed tons of other people's books. I never thought I would write one ever.
Right.
And then as I was on this health journey, I was like, I could see how I could make a book. I could see how I could make a book, but I don't consider myself a writer. I'm dyslexic, and I just, whatever, didn't even think about it. And so one day I took my kids skating and I shattered my wrist, basically. I had to get emergency surgery. And I ended up like on the couch with my hand above my head for like an entire 8-week period around Christmas. And
that's good for a writer.
Yeah, right. So I couldn't write, but I had a lot of thinking time, and like literally the whole book just like landed in my head, and I like couldn't use my hand. And two things happened. I got an email from a publisher who said he wrote books that you could speak. You pay him $30,000. And then I got Amanda Palmer wrote this best-selling book right at the time, because she had launched the first $1 million Kickstarter, which had really affected like the music industry. And both of those things, I was like, I'm going to afford this guy, and I'm going to have a Kickstarter to have it. And that really actually kickstarted like the whole, like the money working. And I did that, and we raised way more than I needed, paid the guy, did the book that way. Cool. But then what happened is I wrote the book. It was a lot about how to be with your family around food. And I wanted to go on a book tour, because this was like way pre-pandemic. And I was like, I can't be in California talking about dinner while my kids are in Boston. Like there was like a disconnect, because I have 3 kids for now, a bit. They're in high school and college, but at the time they were like, little, and I was supposed to be there with them. And so I took them out of school for a year, and we went on this book tour. And what happened in that year was I really had to show up, both to my kids, but also like I had taken them out of school. So it's like I had to make it work. And so I ended up meeting so many people, because I just kept getting booked to speak. And I just had so many conversations with so many women. And it was really California that tipped me, because I just kept looking out to these audience. I would do a lot of talks, like the evening talks at schools.
Oh, yeah.
I would look out at this like group of moms, and I would be like, there's no way that I know more about food than these women. Like, they're beautiful. They definitely have green smoothies in the morning. Like, what am I doing here? Like, the imposter syndrome was huge. And I would just have these conversations with them, and they would all inevitably take out their phone and just be like, Mia, like, literally, I know how to go to the farmer's market. I do know what kale is, but like, there's no time. Like, I end work here. I'm supposed to have gotten to my kid half an hour earlier. Dinner is supposed to be in 15 minutes. And like, I don't even know how to do it. And that was when I realized that like my piece of all this was the time piece. And that's what I had always kind of been obsessed with. I just didn't see it. And so I sort of went to solving that part, and realizing that, like, as I had always been an entrepreneur, because my graphic design company had been mine. So it was like there were these pieces of work and health and spirituality and family that I really thought needed to like be thought through together for most women, in order for us to really figure out how to do all the things we want to do. And at the time I was seeing how siloed we thought about the things. It's like we say yes to kids, yes to everything work, yes to wanting to be healthy, but like that didn't, like, nothing was working together, because I hadn't thought through it that way.
And then whatever's left over was for like our own health, right?
Yeah, right.
That's like the afterthought. If that even made the list, anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh, and that's a pandemic in itself. That is like not specific to the U.S., not specific to Canada. That is specific to like the whole world. Where I think that that time management piece, when we're trying to, get everything accomplished that we were meant to get accomplished, plus work, plus kids, plus self, plus business, plus.
And I think we think it's going to end at some point. And that was the other gift, is I started meeting women sort of all at, at that time my kids were little. So I would look up to women whose kids were in 8th and 9th and 10th grade. And I'd be like, oh, like by then it's all different. But I kept seeing that it wasn't. And I can tell you that in the past 8 years, I've been coaching a lot of women. Like I get a lot of emails from women who are past all this, and like it doesn't work itself out. Like they're like, can I come? Because I'm still doing these things. Like the whole habit really hard. And it's not like all of a sudden the kids grow up, we're making money, whatever's happening, and it's all balanced. Like it doesn't work like that. And so we really do need to solve for this, like as soon as we can.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit how you solved that problem then for the women that come together in your program, because it sounds like you had such a great learning experience that year, like learning from women across the country of what wasn't working. So that must have inspired a really great program to roll out.
Yeah, it was fun. Well, and what I really realized when I sat down with it, because I took a lot of good notes, and so that whole thing was a blur because I had 3 little kids driving across country. But what I did was I actually went back and I reverse engineered, so when I got healthy, I did something kind of extreme and culinary, and I didn't know how to cook the day before, but I literally overhauled my health in a week. And then when I wrote the book, I just felt like I shouldn't have been someone who wrote a book like that. Felt like that not a possible thing, yet it became very possible. And then same with the tour. And so I was like, well, what did all these things have in common? How did these things come together? And what I realized was there's just so much noise in our lives, and that's only gotten worse, right? Lives. So I'm talking 10 years ago, I was realizing, or 15 years ago, I was realizing how much noise was in my life. And we weren't like we were right now with Instagram and text and smartphones and things that happen. So it's really noisy. And I was just seeing how easily distracted I was being by everything outside of myself. And in those 3 moments, what I did was I just I was listening to the inside, all the choice was coming from the inside out. It was I had either by choice or usually not by choice, but had some sort of pause, breaking my arm or whatever. I don't wish breaking their arm on anyone. But at that point, it had forced this pause. And it had really caused me to sort of center and get really clear on my vision. So that's where we always start in our program, just starting from our own, no crowdsourcing at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I think what we've done as women is we've sort of flip-flopped the model that works best for us. So we're taking in all the things we think we're supposed to do. The kids are supposed to do this. We're supposed to be eating this. We're supposed to do entrepreneurship this way. We're taking in all this noise. Mm-hmm. And then having to fit in a certain amount of it into the day we have. And it always feels overwhelming because we're always sure there's other things we're not doing. But if we flip that and we start with, okay, I'm getting centered. I'm really clear about what I want. And these are the things I'm going to pull to get there. These are the things that feel really aligned right now. And we're really coming from that place. There's no overwhelm because those are the things that fit right now. But then what happens in the other way is that we end up most women do most things alone. It's we don't even always ask our spouses to help us with our kids, we operate businesses by ourselves. We do all these things on our own. And so I think it's just backwards. It's we need to come into what we want on our own, but then we really need the village. In order to make it all happen, we need the village. And so really what we created in our business was the pathway to make all those choices, and then the village to really see through the help with the follow through.
That's so cool. Because, it's interesting that when we, that's that overwhelm of it never seems to be done, the list or the chores or the things that are that need to get done. So I love the way that you guys have kind of flipped that around, and where it's this is what we're focusing on. And then there's that completion feeling and cycles in it that really help that.
And there's a discomfort still that you can't do everything, but it's have to come to terms with that discomfort before. And when you come to terms with the discomfort before you're doing something, rather than at the end of the day, you know, like at the
It's
beginning.
intentional. Yeah.
It's different. It just like feels different. Like you're like, I've done everything I said I would do versus, you know, I've been working all day, but it doesn't feel like I got anything done because there's like 100 other things I could do.
Yeah. So just having that community of people and support, I would imagine, is like so much helpful in seeing people, you know, get more, I would say there's usually a lot of anxiety for me anyways, that comes with that like overwhelmed feeling. So when you've got it reverse engineered that way and you've got that community of support, I'm assuming that the anxiety levels go down, stress levels go down, the people feel supported, they feel held or seen, heard, right?
Yeah, and we're taking people through all those steps. I mean, that's a part of it. Like, so when you're alone, you're not really alone. We're just like getting through that process to like really tap in, like not crowdsource from the very beginning what it is that life is supposed to be.
Right. That's so cool. So where can people find out more about that? And then we're going to jump to what's happening right now in back to business. As the kids are going back to school, we're going back to business because it does really feel like you take time. Well, I was still trying to work during the summer, but I feel like everyone else taking the time off. So I was like, why am I doing this? I might as well just take the summer off and get back to business in September.
Did you take the summer off?
No, I kept trying to. I did work a lot less than I normally do in the summer because I finally was just like, my kids are young. I'm going to take the time with them, go swimming, go to the lake. And so I worked mornings. I rigged my schedule. So I got up early before these lazy bums on summer vacation were getting up. My kids are sleeping till 10 a.m. I was like, what is going on? I'm going to take advantage of that and work from like 7 till 10, get 3 hours of work in before anyone's even up. Nobody even noticed. It was perfect. So that's how I felt better about working this summer. Yeah, making it work for me. Yeah.
So good. So good. Okay, you asked like a multi-pack question. So anyone can find us on plansimple.com. So I'll just say that. That's the easiest way to find it. And you always know what's current.
You can also find our podcast there too.
Yeah, definitely find our podcast there. Our program is not always open for enrollment, so it's not always up there, but there's always a pathway in, and then you can find out more. Mm-hmm. We have a free course there. So the other question was about the event. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, we're going back to business as everyone's going back to school.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really excited about it because I realized, so there's like sort of two sides to it. There's the side of like, as mothers, we, took care of everybody else, got everybody else back to school, and with entrepreneurship. And then it's like, we're just sort of like, I just feel like the quiet is almost eerie when the kids go back to school. It's like, you think we should all of a sudden be able to concentrate and do all these things, but it's actually really sometimes hard to concentrate. It's like, we don't have any planned. It's like, they're landing back in a structure, but we're not. And sometimes as entrepreneurs, we don't really want structure, but there's no landing place. And so that was really what I was responding to. And then it's just sort of like, I was thinking about my kids this summer, and I have 2 in college and 1 in high school, which is unbelievable, but that's a whole other story. And they also started their next thing at different times. So I was just really aware all summer of like getting them each ready for their next thing. One of my son is abroad. And so it's like, we were like organizing and getting the supplies they needed and decluttering some. And then we would have like a goodbye dinner, and we would like honor the next phase. And when they came home, we would congratulate them for finishing the thing. And I'm like, who does that for entrepreneurs? And there's something really nice. It's like a rite of passage. It's like, okay, yeah, this phase is over and now I'm heading into this phase. So part of it was really just like having a place to land before it's Q4, when the kids are back in school, and just really getting our grounding, because I think what happens to a lot of us who are balancing all the things, family and entrepreneurship and ourselves and just all the pieces, is that the holiday season can really rush toward us, and not literally, but it can feel like that. And I think there's a way that it doesn't have to, that we can be really intentional and really use this time and not just like, get busy for the sake of busy right now, but really use that. I think there's something about the fall that like calls us to be productive, but that doesn't have to be, but sometimes when we just get busy, we're not really being productive. So a lot of this was about like, how do we have a pause? How do we learn like new tools and really like recenter what's important, what's going to make a difference in our business? Like, How can we connect with some new people and really do it as a group? Because that's the piece that I think it can be pretty lonely in the fall as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, especially when your houses are like quiet all of a sudden, right? And like, where did everyone go? I heard this really great great quote the other day on social media. It was like, parents, if you're wondering what you should do the first day your kids go back to school, is take the day off. You deserve it. And you made it through the summer. Take the day off and enjoy. And I thought that was hilarious. I was like, that's funny because we just like dive back in and like, oh yeah, let's go, go, go. So I love how you set up this. You've got 50 entrepreneurs who have all done something really cool on this little video we've done. So tell us about how this back to business week is going to work.
Okay. So obviously as a productivity person, like I'm always thinking about, okay, how can we like actually, make the group piece work, but also just really honor everyone's time. Like I always want to honor everyone's time. So thinking about this a lot, and this is not obviously my first summit, but this is the second one where we've done this thing, which is that each speaker is speaking for 5 minutes. Yeah, and cool. So we can deliver 12 really impactful shifts, tools, strategies, like they're all a little bit different a day. I definitely orchestrated the schedule. Like, so I was very, like, I curated what was happening. So it was like day 1 is about marketing. Day 2 is about sales stuff and buyers. Day 3 is about sort of expanding your business capacity. Day 4 is about mindset. And the 5th day is about how your body and home can support your business. And so I really wanted all those pieces in it. And then I sort of built it based on, there was a whole application process involved. But the interesting thing so there's 12 a day. All that was to say that there's 12 a day. And in 12 5-minute videos, it's an hour. Like it's not more than an hour. And I have now watched all of them, obviously. And every time I watch them, I literally cry. And my husband's like, you're watching about how to like do Instagram. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, but it's like, it's literally like time bends because it's really, you got to make one. So you probably have the other side of the story, but it's like unbelievable to me that I have to check my phone to like make sure that it's really only been 5 minutes. I mean, the video ticker says it's only been 5 minutes. And I'm just always really surprised by how much actually fits into 5 minutes.
Right.
When everybody is really focused on what it is that they're sharing. So it just feels really like, it just feels beautifully packed with just the right amount of information that someone could take in. So that's a piece of it. And every morning at 6 a.m., those get released for the day. The 12 get released for the day. And so somebody could just take that and like, do their normal day, see a client and then have 5 minutes and watch a video. Like it could go like that. But my real intention was that people challenge themselves to take a little bit longer than usual to be working on their business instead of in their business. So there really was a week of like, analyzing and being like, okay, how can I use AI right now? What do I want my social media strategy to be like? Do I need to write some SOPs? Like all of these things are things we're going to cover and taking the time to actually do them. So every afternoon, we're going to have a 90-minute co-working session that I'm going to operate in the way that we operate for our clients, sort of, except we don't usually break it up into such small parts, but just to really show how one could focus in a different way. And get things done. Our get it done sessions are kind of like, I don't know, there's somewhere between like co-working and a yoga class because we guide you through the whole process of like getting centered and getting really focused on what you're doing. And then we time you doing it and you make it happen. And, there's not a lot of space to go down rabbit holes in our sessions. And so we're doing that every afternoon so that by the end of the week, everyone really feels like they got something done. And then we'll challenge, of course, everyone to like, really only be working on their business. So there'll be more, but those are the important pieces.
That's cool. I think it's such a unique concept because I appreciate your condensing time for us because in 5 minutes we can learn a lot from someone. And my experience recording those videos is exactly what you said. I was like, so it's like that was 5 minutes. Like, wow, that like I was like thinking I was going to have to speak really fast and like cram it all into like a short period of time. But I was like, wow, you got the And it made me think of like, how much time do we waste in what we're doing or what we're saying? Like, I probably would have given that same content in like a 30-minute or 20-minute talk because it was just so funny.
And it's interesting because I feel like there's a space for that. Like, I feel like people listen to podcasts, for example, right. And it's like if you want to be more in conversational mode and, you know, and I don't like sometimes things get shared in podcasts that are like something I might want to implement, but it's just a different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the inspirations behind the 5 minutes and why I started thinking about it was because that year that I went on the book tour and homeschooled, I bought all these like books and I really unschooled my kids. I'm not going to call it homeschooling because I really had to read and journal and like whatever. But my oldest was in 7th grade at the time. And he, at some point in April, was like, Mom, I think you actually have to teach me the math because otherwise I'm going to go into 8th grade and everyone's going to think I'm dumb. And I really need to learn whatever I was supposed to learn this year for math. He's like, I don't care about anything else, but I want to learn the math. And I was like, okay. So I got my mother, I got the book of like what they were learning the whole year in math. And I got my mother-in-law and she started by just coming an hour a day. And in 4 weeks, they were done. And I was like, dang, all those kids are sitting there for an hour every day for an entire year.
Right.
And so it was like, and you know, it was 1 kid versus 20 kids. But I was like, wow, there's a lot of inefficiencies that I think we build in to the learning process just because like, you know, we just take what happened before. And so I was like, how can that be different?
Yeah. I know it's like so interesting. I think if you homeschool your kids, it's like less than 2 hours a day of schoolwork when they sit in the classrooms for 8 hours a day is really scary.
I know. It's crazy. Like, I forgot.
No, I don't homeschool my kids, but I did for like a year when we were in the RV, but they were so little. It was like kindergarten, so it was not real homeschool. It was just school.
I totally could not teach 7th grade math, so I was like, all right.
Yeah, that's so interesting that it was done so quickly. Yeah, that's incredible. But I love the productivity for. Then like looking at it then from our business perspective. So where are we inefficient in our productivity in our business? And I bet in a lot of places, and I know for sure, going down all those rabbit holes, like, you know, you go to social media to post something and then an hour later you're like, okay, I didn't post that thing and I was totally lost and consumed by something else and I bought some program I didn't need and now I'm off in a different like rabbit hole. So I can't
so crazy what we do.
Right. So having that focused time is so great. And so I'm looking forward to participating not only as someone that presented that has the 5-minute video that people are going to watch. Mine is all about the 3 things that you need to know about getting media ready so that you're ready when Oprah calls, which was super fun to get that together. And those are all mistakes that I made. So that was a fun one to put together. So I'm like, yep, I did all of these things wrong the first time out and now I've learned from it. But that's the cool thing is that I think all of these videos are going to really help us take these strategies and really implement them in a quick way. And I love how you've added that integration piece to the whole week, which was super cool.
So all like, and it's fun. The other thing about 5 minutes is that they're all kind of like, I was thinking about this the other day because I was like, well, what would happen if someone just tried to take this week and just teach, you know, how to get back to your business in September? Like it could be that some coach just did this alone. And I feel like the vibe would be very different because what's really fun is that like each one is very specific and they don't necessarily all string together, but they're all tangible and they're all really impactful. And it almost makes it like, it feels more like a game or more fun. Like everything, if we all just went and made those things or like, you know, how to like knew that we had that whenever we were pitching something, we're going to be like, it's like, we need like, we're going to be so ahead. And yet if it's part of this like bigger thing that was very serious about, you know, all the things you had to do, I don't know if it would be as easy to implement. So there is this aspect of like, you know, there's like all these little things that together are going to add up to this really sort of fun, big change, being ready for your business.
That's cool. It's like a treasure map.
Really like a treasure map. We have a bingo game, actually.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. Now I like a treasure map.
I love it. That's so cool. So I will link down below into our show notes where you guys can sign up to the Back to Business. You can go check out all my social media profiles too. I'm going to have the images on links also on there. And yeah, how else we can find you on your website, and anything else you want our entrepreneurs to know before we let you go today?
Just like I just want everyone to consider how just slowing down and making a plan for like what's coming through is what you want. Like how that could get you to your next level. Because I think so often we're just running sort of with our eyes closed. And when we just open them for a minute and slow, it's weird. Like it's like the 5-minute video, but it's this weird thing that if you just slow down, you can actually get way more accomplished on the other side. Not only like, and I'm not talking about hustle. I'm talking about you could get a way better night's sleep or you could, eat better dinners. Like it's not all about the business, but I just think it's such a powerful time to do that. So whether you come to our event or not, it's like, just take that minute to assess, what's next.
That's so good. I have an example of that in my business where I was sending everyone these podcast guest stuff like manually. Finally, I connected it to my calendar, had the questions on there. Now I just send them the calendar link and the whole process is done. I had to slow down to do that. Not slowing down for 2 days to do that is now gaining me back so much time and energy and effort. Now things go to my assistant automatically. It's all in my calendar. It's all there. Like, holy smokes. Like, why was I taking so long to slow down and do that?
But it's like scary sometimes. It feels like if we do that, we're going to like miss everything. And it's just really which is why doing it with someone else or doing it in a community, I think is so powerful, because then at least it feels like a little safer.
Yeah, friends don't let friends do business alone, and they don't let friends go into September alone either.
Yeah, that's a good tagline.
Yeah, come to Back to Business. Friends don't let friends do September alone. I like that. I'm going to use that in my social post.
Right.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Mia, for being here with us today. I'm excited for us to connect again next week during the Back to Business week, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me. So fun.
You're welcome. All right. Amplify you and high vibe leaders. See you all next week. Thanks for being here today.